Ma Barker, the mother of all American gangsters, organized the Barker Gang. She was killed along with her son Fred in a fierce hours-long shootout with FBI agents who surrounded her home in 1935. Chains used on patients in old psychiatric asylums. Vice Admiral, his wife, and a Rear Admiral stand before a ceremonial cake celebrating the successful U.S. atomic test at Bikini Atoll, 1946. Walter Yeo, the first known patient to undergo plastic surgery in medical history. A Japanese brothel, 1890. When the pious Portuguese Christians discovered Japan in the 16th century, they lost their minds over the caresses of the geishas, and in exchange gifted them syphilis. Chief U.S. hunting inspector with a confiscated 10.9-inch, 250-pound shotgun used for duck hunting, 1920. One shot with this would cover an entire flock. Such weapons were banned in the early 20th century. Workers constructing the 60-story Chase Manhattan Bank, 1955. The completion of the assembly of the bomb called Fat Man. It would later be dropped on Nagasaki in 1945. 19th century vampire hunting kit. French women accused of collaborating with the Germans are paraded through the streets. It seems they are also being forced to give the Hitler salute. World War II. American soldiers leave their names on the walls of the bedroom where Adolf Hitler was born. Braunau, Austria, 1945. One of the rare photographs taken on a ship transporting slaves, 1882. Republicans fight Democrats in a snowball fight at the Capitol, USA, 1921. The real Inglorious Bastards. After WP, most Nazis responsible for the Holocaust escaped punishment, but this group of Jewish men tracked them down for years across different continents and carried out vigilante justice on several hundred Nazis. Initially, Halloween lanterns were not made from pumpkins. In the 19th century, turnips were used for this, and such lanterns looked truly horrifying. Daddy Long Legs, the Underwater Electric Railway, 1897. Walter Smith, a bandit, the scourge of the streets. Australia, 1924. Smith didn't like using weapons and killed people with his bare hands, carefully twisting their heads. The criminal case note reads, "Very dangerous, strongly exhibits sadistic tendencies, may bite." USA, 1905, a competition of African Americans who headbutt barrels. Conjoined twins, Pip and Flip, popular circus performers, 1923. Lotus feet, an ancient tradition in China, was a fetish based on a woman's helplessness. The mutilated feet prevented her from running away, which gave the man a feeling of power and tempted him with permissiveness. In 1965, 90-year-old French woman Jeanne Calment sold her apartment to a 47-year-old lawyer who agreed to make monthly payments to her until her death, with the total amount based on a 10-year lifespan. In the end, Calment received money from him for 30 years and outlived the lawyer, with his widow continuing the payments for 2 more years. Skeleton of a giant turtle. Photo from 1902. A hippie wedding, 1965. In 1945, the Red Army entered the Łódź ghetto in Poland. They found just over 800 Jewish survivors. The total population had been 204,000. World Bank President Paul Wolfowitz takes off his shoes before entering a mosque during a visit to Turkey, 2007. Chinese court, the most inhumane court in the world. Every day, one stone would be removed from under the feet of the man until he suffocates. Photo from 1906. In the picture is a river pirate who killed 6 people. War orphans searching for food, Tokyo, 1946. A father looks for his two missing sons during the Kosovo War in 1999. He would later find them. High jump at the 1908 London Olympics. Stefan Bobrowski, also known as Lionel the Lion-Faced Man, was born in Poland in 1890. He had hypertrichosis. His entire body was covered in hair. During World War II, the Soviet Army used pigeons to deliver incendiary shells. The birds were dropped from planes with shells attached, which triggered when they landed on enemy aircraft. English language sign "Here was Forge" installed at the ruins of the city of Forges-les-Eaux, almost completely destroyed during World War I, France, 1917. The architect of the Auschwitz concentration camp, Rudolf Höss, shortly before he was executed. The first day of war. Soviet civilians in Moscow listened to the radio announcement that Germany has invaded the Soviet Union, 22nd June 1941. Liverpool goalkeeper Ray Clements patiently waiting during a match against West Ham while a dog expresses its opinion of his performance. England, 1972. In the 1950s, U.S. prisoners were volunteers to test roller coaster safety. Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife arrive in Sarajevo, 1914. A man who lost all his money in the stock market sells his Chrysler for $100. USA, 1929. A taxi with the sign, "For colored people only." Early 1960s. Rapper 50 Cent in 1994. At that time, he was just a 19-year-old thug convicted for drug trafficking. Quadruplers from the 1930s. India vaulted from the Middle Ages into the future thanks to the USSR. In 1981, India successfully launched its first satellite from its own soil, but because of a lack of specialized vehicles, the rocket and satellite components had to be transported on bullock carts. A Zippo lighter belonging to an unknown American pilot. Two families of workers from a confectionery factory rent a corner in a room, Russia, 1923. Advice from a Russian children's magazine on how to point out a black person, 1904. British soldiers suppress a rebellion in Kenya, 1955. The mummy of Ramses II, the pharaoh who ruled ancient Egypt from 1279 to 1213 BC. In Congo, Belgians cut off the hands of children and women as punishment for poorly performed rubber collection work, late 19th century. Special anti-gas cribs for infants, England, 1942. An organized criminal group that terrorized London from the Victorian era until the mid-20th century was called the 40 Elephants, and it was made up entirely of women. London, 1880s. Abandoned ships in the desert. The drop in water levels in the Aral Sea is called one of the worst environmental disasters on the planet. Brunettes boycotting the film Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, 1953. In 1929, during the Soviet-Chinese conflict, a Soviet shell accidentally killed a prostitute in a Japanese brothel. The Japanese consulate sued the USSR for 22,500 yen, calculating the sum based on the number of clients and the income she could have brought to Japan over her lifespan. Martin Lorello, born with the ability to turn his head 180 degrees, 1938. Prisoners shackled in handcuffs turning foot-powered mills in Yangon Prison, Myanmar, 1900s. During the settlement of the western regions of North America, there were mostly men living there. In the photo, 4 men from Montana posted a notice on their house saying they were looking for wives. Early 20th century. Before Google Maps, there was a navigation helpline, 1963. Workers lay a wooden water pipe east of Lewiston, Idaho, 1891. American cavalrymen by the giant sequoia, grizzly giant. Strangely enough, no one cut this tree down, and it still exists today. USA, 1900. A boy handing out the evening newspaper with news of the Titanic disaster, 1912. Upon learning there was a blind little girl in the audience, Elvis knelt before her. "Do you like my songs, honey?" "Yes, sir, I listen every night before bed." After the concert, Presley paid for her vision restoration surgery. American officers at the Ohrdruf concentration camp, April 1945. As American troops approached the camp, German guards shot the remaining prisoners. Cornell University students learned the intricacies of ironing in a home economics class, 1951. An ancient praying mantis preserved in amber, over 12 million years old. Nebraska resident Audra Thomas photographs herself as a tornado approaches her farm. USA, 1989. Women gathering firewood, Russian Empire, 1913. About 100 people draw lots to equally divide 12 acres of purchased sand dunes. This place would later become the city of Tel Aviv, Israel. In the Congo, Belgians cut off the hands of locals as punishment for poorly performed rubber gathering work. Late 19th century. A massive ocean sunfish weighing 3,500 pounds, 1,587 kilo, caught by fishermen off Santa Catalina Island, California, April 1910. At 13, Louis Vuitton left his native village and walked to Paris in search of a better life. His journey over 450 kilometers was made on foot and alone after his stepfather kicked him out. Fingerprints became a method of identification after 2 people named Will West were convicted of the same crime in Kansas. They looked exactly the same, but only fingerprints helped determine who was guilty. Excavation of the Berezovsky Mammoth, Russian Empire, 1901. The hairstyle of this Victorian fashionista is adorned with a taxidermy cat, and the bodice of her dress is decorated with real cattails. 1883. Photo of total solar eclipse on July 11, 1991, Chiapas, Mexico. A device for breaking the wrists of heretics invented by Christian priests in the 15th century. It was used to break the arms of heretics. A boy reading in a London bookstore after an air raid, 1940. How erotic comics were viewed in the USA, 1942. Chicago explodes in rage the day after Martin Luther King Jr.'s death as people take to the streets, USA, 1968. Military dogs during World War I and sentry duty, 1916. Chinese execution method, 1900. Prisoners stand on a pile of stones with 1 stone removed each day until suffocation occurs. Teeth filing in Indonesian tribes, 1938. A photo of a boy who heard sound for the first time in his life. The doctor had just fitted him with a hearing aid in his left ear. The beginning of the era of deception, a demonstration of inflatable bras, 1952. Dora Rathen, an athlete from the Olympic team of Germany, was arrested at a railway station on suspicion of being a man disguised in women's clothing, 1938. a 35-year-old peasant in the first half of the 20th century. British soldiers drag a 2,900-pound howitzer down the road, World War I, 1916. A mother reunites with her daughter after 7 months of service in Iraq. The Iron Maiden, a terrifying torture device for heretics. It was a sarcophagus with 20-centimeter spikes. When closed, they pierced the body, intentionally missing vital organs. Bill Gates, with a fortune of $90 billion and number 2 on the Forbes list, stands in line for a burger in Seattle. The Primwaddle twins. When the husband found out his wife gave birth to twins, he was horrified and left the family. After this betrayal, Mrs. Primwaddle hated men, but unfortunately the twins were boys. She decided to act as though her boys were girls. The children believed they were girls until the age of 19. Upon learning the truth, they decided they would not tolerate it anymore. They strangled their mother with a scarf and gouged out her eyes. Sword Swallower, 1928. An X-ray of the sword swallower, one of the most unique photos of that period. Manchester and Cardiff fans arguing over which team plays better football. Britain, 1970s. During World War II, the Soviet Army trained suicide dogs intended to destroy enemy tanks. Hungry dogs were trained to find food under mock tanks. In combat, the dogs were strapped with explosives and sent under approaching tanks, where they were supposed to die. A Vietnamese family fleeing to Saigon during the Vietnam War, 1972. Gold Rush, Serra Pelada Gold Mines, Brazil, 1986. In Texas, a man was killed by a bullet that was shot at him 20 years ago. In 1883, Henry Zieglin was shot at but survived. The bullet only scratched his head and got stuck in a tree. 20 years later, Zieglin decided to remove the tree. By then, it had grown large, so he decided to blow it up with dynamite. The explosion pushed the bullet out of the tree, and it hit Zieglin in the head, killing him instantly. 3 years of war between these portraits. The felling of massive sequoia trees in the USA, early 20th century. The world's largest monument to Stalin was unveiled in Prague, Poland in 1955. It was nicknamed the Line for Meat by the people. In the 1930s, the Soviet Union attempted to create a human-chimpanzee hybrid through insemination. The experiments were unsuccessful and were discontinued. Sparked a reaction. Whether good or bad, I'd love to read your comments below. Get ready for the next installment very soon. Please like and subscribe so you don't miss out. Catch you later.